Hello, hello, hello. My name is Dennis. That is my crime. It's also my punishment. And welcome, you beautiful, beautiful people, to what is going to be a again another impromptu one. Although it does seem like I'm going to be doing these on a semi-regular basis. I kind of like the 11 in the morning streams on the Sunday and everything. I just think it's it's a nice chill Sunday chat. It's kind of inspired a little bit by some of Sly Flourish's work. If you're not familiar with Sly Flourish, the Lazy DM, the Lazy Dungeon Master, they've done amazing work in the past. They've released a bunch of really useful resources in regards to running tabletop games efficiently. Lazy DM is something that you're going to remember, but I would say, given how much work and prep and a lot of other things that we go through in order to get all this stuff done, I would say lazy is not a bad thing on our end. So do recommend that stuff. But anyway, they do Mike Shea, Sly Flourish. He does a bunch of like regular streams where he goes over campaign prep for some of his games and everything. That might be something I do in the future. That might be something interesting for anyone who's interested in, like, say, the Call of Cthulhu thing that I run. But that's not really the thrust and the purpose of this particular thing. Oh, I also literally just realized on the actual Twitch thing, it said, join me as we say goodbye to 2024. Yeah, that been there, done that. Nah, we fucking moved on. We've really moved on from that. Now, what we're going to be doing now is we're talking about the week of chaos, the week that I have just had, and I actually have my show notes this time. Yes, I've been using Obsidian as well. Another thing that I picked up from. Well, I know that Mike Shea's been using it for a while, but it was actually a friend of mine, Kuba. Kuba was the one who actually put me personally onto it. It's something I'd heard of for a while. I was basically trying to find a new note-taking app, and Obsidian's actually been really good for that. I've had zero complaints with it. It's been very useful. The desktop version and the cell phone version, there's many videos, there's all sorts of things you can do. You can basically build a freaking website with it if you so desire. I do not need such functionality at this time, but it's definitely filled in the gap that I used to that I needed. Things like Evernote, or was it OneNote? There was a bunch of different apps that I used to have on my phone back when I lived in England, back 2014, 2015 and everything, when I was doing my comic. Then I moved over to Google Drive and everything. Unfortunately, trying to edit a Google Drive document in your cell phone is a little bit trickier to do. There's things like different apps that you need to do and all that. So Obsidian, for the most part, has been very useful for me. OneNote was the note-taking app from Microsoft. It might not have been OneNote. It was like it was basically it had a green icon. Evernote. I think Evernote was the one I used. Well, unfortunately, it got super laggy and super choppy, and things weren't connecting. So I'm updating it on my phone, but it doesn't update on the desktop. Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, past is past. Past is prologue. Right now, very, very happy with Obsidian, and it's been really useful for me when I'm taking notes, when I'm out and about, when I'm commuting, when I'm at the day job and everything. It's been really useful to get down a couple of ideas, and I've needed them this past week. So when we last left, I was discussing some of my plans, my hopes for this particular year. It was my intention to be producing 4 PDFs, 4 print-on-demand zines, basically, one every quarter, that were based on my ongoing tabletop RPG setting, the Varsal. It's basically an Eldritch adventure setting. It is the setting that I have used for several years. I've actually been developing it since 2013, 2012. It's been around for, in fact, no, that's a lie. It's actually been around a little bit earlier than that, because the very first piece of content I made for it was actually for 4th edition D&D. And we will get to that later. But basically, the Varsal has always kind of been intended as a D&D setting. You know, like Dungeons and Dragons, the classic, you know, the world's greatest tabletop role-playing game. Of course, if you've been keeping up to date, Hasbro, Wizards of the Coast, and everything, it's not really something I, as an independent self-publisher or third-party publisher, or I should say third-party creator, can really say with a straight face anymore, given the OGL and all that. And I'm not going to repeat myself ad nauseum in regards to things that you already know by now. So, I'm not announcing Cybervarsal. Well, interesting theory there. No, I am not currently planning anything using the Cyberpunk system. Because I don't. Here's the thing. I've played Cyberpunk once. I do not know the system well enough to make any third-party content for it, and I just don't believe. There are certain elements of Varsal that you could run in a Cyberpunk system, but I do not know the legal minutiae of any particular third-party licensing that. Oh, I wanted to remember the name of the company. I'm blanking on them at the moment. The developers of Cyberpunk. I know that they're cool people. I know they're very cool people, and I have heard zero bad shit from them in regards to that kind of stuff. But I don't really think that making third-party Cyberpunk content is on the cards at this point in time. Things may change. However, what I have been pushing for quite some time now is, you see, this little symbol here. It's Tales of the Valiant, the Kobold Press 5e hack. Basically, their version of the 5th edition rule set, which became Creative Commons not that long ago. Another theory in the chat is it's going to be Call of Varsal. Well, here's the thing. I believe Tales of the Valiant and Modifius and their Call of Cthulhu / basic role-playing system, I'm under the belief that that is going to be using what's called the Orc license. Now, I was kind of down for that up until fairly recently. I thought that the Orc license was going to be a fairly decent third-party publishing option. However, I have been doing a little bit of research, and I'm hearing conflicting things. So, I'm not saying I'm not going to be making content for Tales of the Valiant, because I am very deep into the reads in regards to this, and the amount of time and the amount of effort that I've put in, I will be making Tales of the Valiant content, or should that be Black Flag content? So that's the distinction. That is the distinction, because the Black Flag is the more open-ended SRD for Tales of the Valiant, system reference document for those who don't quite understand. So they released the SRD for Tales of, which was Black Flag, which was originally called Black Flag. All of that stuff is currently out now. It is free to pick up and mess around with, and there is a particular license for that. But any license to use Tales of the Valiant, which is the advanced, developed, and published version, that's a different license. And there's a lot of minutia involved there to legally cover yourself and everything. So I'm currently... yeah, and I'm going to bring that up in a second, what you just put in chat. And I'm currently in the process of trying to figure out which license is best, what I need to change, what is good, what is not good, and everything for me as a self-publisher, self-creator in the near future, very near future, since I'm trying to get this stuff out sometime this year. I'll address the comment that you actually brought up, but yeah, Medivius seems to prefer supplemental material being free of charge. So I understand your hesitation. Yeah. I'm like, I mean, look, I'll pull out some free stuff. I completely understand the appeal of free. I like free, as long as it's a loss lead into convincing people to buy your premium content, you know, the stuff that is actually going to pay your bills and put food on the table, which free isn't going to. You know, just having a Patreon and being, hey, I'm going to continue to just pull up all this stuff for free forever, and I'm just going to hope that people give me money on a regular basis for early access and all that. That's a business model, I guess, but it's not a very stable one. It's not something that I would much rather be providing a service like I'm doing on Start Playing, or providing a product that people will be willing to pay money for, rather than just give out my stuff and be like, please like me, please like me. And that's not me mocking the people who do that or make that model work. I mean, hats off to you, kudos. What do we look at? Quincy and Santa. Okay, so why not? First of all, I'm afraid, this is my ignorance coming in. I'm not really aware of who Tank Tolman is. There's a lot of people in the indie scene, and I'm not too sure who that person is. I don't think I've crossed their mind. And you mentioned Quincy. Now, Quincy, I believe, is a TikToker who does videos on, well, TikTok. Well, they're not, to my knowledge, they're not self-publishers. They're not independent. Well, they're content creators, but they're visual content. I'm talking about book sellers, people who make books and sell them. It's a very different thing, very, very different thing. But I appreciate the question there. Yeah, but yeah, free stuff is great for advertising, not for paying the bills. So I can always make something and give it out for free to get people interested, but at the end of the day, I need something ready to put on the shelf once I have people's attention. Otherwise, I'm just an influencer. Otherwise, I'm just begging people for attention, you know? And I think I've had 20 years of doing that with, yeah, I don't see the point. I don't see the point in that. But anyway, to the point in hand. Because Tales of the Valiant and Black Flag and everything, their license may not be as open as I initially thought. I'm not saying it's a bad... I'm not going to say it's a bad license. I'm not saying that it's detrimental. What I am saying is I am hearing people who do this a lot more than I do, who have very strong opinions about it, that they personally would not do stuff for that license. So that is causing me to have to reassess and pivot in a couple of different ways. I recently spent a lot of time looking at, I would say, Indestructible, to the point that Loz is making, in regards to seeing what other people are doing. I would say Indestructible is one of those people who is doing fairly well in the particular space, and again, I've been quoting them a lot recently. I've been paying a lot of attention to what they're doing with their game system, Vagabond. And in fact, let's just bring things over to here real quick. Make sure I've got the right screen up. Yeah. So yeah, this is Vagabond. This is a RPG system that Land of the Blind, which is Indestructiboy's system, his service basically, is under. For those of you who don't know, he's made his actual name is there we go, Taran Pounds. I keep forgetting his real name, but he basically makes he's made a bunch of third-party classes, a lot of interesting content for various systems, mainly 5th edition over the years, and he's recently been like pushing his own system, his more recent system, and from what I am led to believe, this particular system that he's using is going to be completely open, as in it can basically, you can make whatever you want using this system, which is pretty freaking cool. However, I have not had the time to really look into it directly. I have picked up a copy. I have picked up a digital copy. However, I haven't had the time to really sit down and go through everything. Why did I have the wrong thing open? Oh, because I'm a dipshit, that's why. But yeah. So this is the I don't know if you can see, so we have the Vagabond. Yeah, you're not even going to see that on a screen. Oh, there's got a black and white filter, because why would you? But yeah, I recently picked up the PDF and everything. 18 classes, 7 ancestries. I would say this is a little bit still in the vein of, like, say, D&D, Pathfinder, that type of thing. It does seem to be again, this is a tactically based combat game. A lot of stuff. One of the things that I do like about it is you're always going to get hit by the enemy. The enemy doesn't need to roll to hit you. It is going to hit you automatically. But things like your armor class and other stats are going to make you harder to hurt, not hit. So there's not really that much of a case of swinging and missing. It's like they're hitting you, but they're, it's like the tougher you are, the less you're feeling it, but you're still going to be taking damage. And there's like lots of little tweaks to the system that he has, which look really, really interesting. And I'm trying to take the time required to properly see if I want to be making content for this. However, still early days yet, but the system that I am really looking into at the moment, which was another system that he suggested, would be this. It's a little thing called Shadow Dark. Now, Shadow Dark is something that I actually bumped into like a year or so ago when it became fairly popular and everything. Like it had just come out. It is basically, as you can see here, it's an award-winning game that only came out like a year or so ago. It was developed by just one person. I believe her name is Kelsey. I forget. In fact, it's probably going to be down here somewhere. No? Any information? But yeah, the person who made this game... Oh, here we go. This is actually relevant. And we'll read this in a second. But yeah, long and the short of it is, Shadow Dark is it's sort of like an OSR type game. It's based on the BX type of D&D. And for those of you who don't know, which was me a few weeks ago, BX is basically the catch-all term for people referring to the basic and expert versions of D&D. This is the old systems from way back in the day. You're talking like 2nd edition D&D, that kind of thing. And this is sort of inspired by that, but it also has some modern sensibilities thrown in, where you have you can roll with advantage. There's, I would say, actually, Shadow Dark, it takes a lot of content from BX and a little bit of 5e sensibility, but I would say at its core, its main inspiration would be Darkest Dungeon. You know, the isometric sort of like 2.5D dungeon crawling game with, you know, sanity effects and light, you know, the torches and everything. Because one of the things I really love about this, the real thrust about Shadow Dark specifically, is you're not heroes going on adventures and you know, with like multiple different, like very specific niche builds and everything. No, you're just small little dudes. You are crawlers, not adventurers. You are called crawlers because you are crawling through the dark, through ruins, through cities, through areas where it is dark and dangerous. And if you don't have your light, then the bad things are going to come more frequently. That's where the danger lives, in the dark. And I like the vibe. I do like the vibe with it very, very much. And by the way, Shadow Dark, as a Cork says, Shadow Dark looks like it might be very suited to the themes of Warsaw. Yeah, bitch. Yeah. Abso-fucking-lutely correct. So yeah, I think I think it's 100% absolutely confirmed that I will be making content for this game. Am I going to be doing it exclusively though? No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. But well, let me explain that in but one moment. But yeah, you can use a Shadow Dark RPG third-party license to freely publish material that is compatible with Shadow Dark RPG. Find a copy of the most recent version of the license in the Creator Kit. In a post-OGL world, licensing can be frustrating for creators. Our goal with this license was to keep it short, simple, and direct, not overstuff it with legalese, and give you as much freedom as possible. We're also publishing the Shadow Dark RPG third-party license as part of the core rulebook, so it will always be available for creators to rely on. So that is nice. And this is actually the third-party thing here. Sure, just copy it. When was the last time I used Dropbox? Just now. So let me just you must include the following in your publication: legal logos and branding. You may use the design. I'm not going to read the whole thing because that's boring. That's kind of not the real point of this. But you see what I mean about, like, they're very... It's literally just the one page. You must include the following in your publication: the product name is an independent product published under the Shadow Dark RPG third-party license and isn't affiliated with Arcane Library, the creators of Shadow Dark. LSC, Shadow Dark RPG, and the Arcane Library. Let's see if any provision is deemed yeah, so there's something to look into later. But yeah, I love the art aesthetic. There's a pretty good Discord community I've been looking into. The initial release of Shadow Dark is a little bit it seems a little bit thin at first, where you have like 4 characters. Actually no, I think there's like 5 or 6 player characters, but there's only like 4 classes and so on and so forth. However, Over the past year or so, they've actually been making solo rules are free, nice. They actually have been releasing these zines, each of which contain some new classes, new locations, and some extra adventures and so on. So they're like fleshing out a little bit of their content as they go, and most of that is contained here in a little website known as shadowdarklings.net. Now, one of the things that I love more than anything else about these games is making a character. In Shadowdark, there's far more random chance involved. You don't really pick most of your abilities as you level up. You basically roll on a table to see what you might get. There are some that you do have some choices and everything, but there's a lot of emphasis on rolling on tables, on chance. This means that you're never really gonna have the quote-unquote perfect build, but that's not the point of this game. The point of the game is to generate a quick character that can go on a delve and see what their story is, because this is a fairly brutal game. You don't insta-die. You basically, when you're reduced to 0 hit points, you are knocked down and you roll a d4. Take that d4, add it to your constitution score. That's how many rounds you have until you die. It's a randomly generated ticking clock. Lots of little things like that, which really interests me, really sort of it gives me ideas, gives me inspiration, and I really do want to be running this in the near future. I was so confused by what you were saying there when you said like XEEN, and I'm like, oh, it's a zine. No, ZINE, short for magazine. It's a contraction, if you will. But yeah, we'll ignore the humor in chat for a moment. Thank you kindly. Appreciate it though. So, one of the things that, as I was saying, I really love character creation. And if you have a game with an easily accessible character generator, then congratulations, you have just taken what is usually the most difficult part of any TTRPG, convincing people to sit down, look through the rules, and try and figure out how to make a character just before you even start playing the game. Having a character builder like this, where all that's taken care of for you, with all the various options and everything right there, it makes an absolute world of difference. Sincerely. It's one of the reasons why back in the day I used to really appreciate, when I could afford it, I was on D&D Beyond, mainly because of the functionality and everything. However, there were several other 5th edition character creators that I used to use back in the day. I think Orc Pub was one. Yeah, I believe it was Orc Pub, and then it's like some of the data was basically transferred. I believe there was a tragedy involving the person who set it up, and then someone else basically took over, and it went through a name change and this, that, and the other. But yeah, there's been a couple of different third-party character builders that allow you to just plug in various third-party content and just generate your character that way. And honestly, finding a really interesting looking race or background or something like that using a character builder is kind of how I stumble across some third-party creators. It's like, okay, well, I have no idea what this race is. I've never heard of that before. Do a little search, see where this came from, and then I see like the PDF and everything that it's from. And that's how I discovered the Jubilexian, funnily enough. the Jubilexian were basically playable oozes, and you had a few different types of sub races of ooze. And I actually played one of those in technically 2 campaigns, which was like this basically like he was a mimic pretending to be the elderly wizard who used to be his owner until he escaped and ate him. So that was fun. Yeah, it was Professor Karth, for those in the Dice and Dolts group who weren't aware. Yeah, Karth, the original Karth, was a fairly evil wizard, and his pet ooze, Viscus, was basically his waste disposal. So that was fun character concept. But all that came about, none of that would have happened if I hadn't stumbled across that option in a third-party character builder. So I'm a big fan, big fan of character builders and the things that you can do with them and things you can learn from them. So Shadow Darklings is a really useful tool for making quick and simple characters to run Shadow Dark with. Just click over here real quick. So basically, there's a bunch of different options. So let me just see real quick. So the scrolls, what those are the Cursed Scroll is one of the regular zines that has been put out by the actual developers of the RPG. So basically all of that would be considered official content anyway, rather than, independent. You see down here we've got just a couple of options for third-party sources. The B and R and K, I believe that particular release, we just go over here real quick. Bard and Ranger classes, Kobold Ancestry, and I believe the Roustabout. The Roustabout is a new class that they developed recently. So that's what all that stuff is. Unnatural Selection, let me just cut back real quick. Third-party products master list. Ooh, that's useful. Oh, yeah, page not found. I remember. Yeah, because this website is a little older there. But, yeah, so for the moment, I would say let's just... So, Unnatural Selection, it's going to say right there. So, as you see down here, with just the official options at the moment, including the rest of that, you have Dwarf, Elf, Goblin, Half-Orc, Halfling, Human, Kobold. Basic options there. You add Unnatural Selection, you have things like Shalonian, Half-Troll, Mycelian, Arisen, Shadow Elf, Slime Frog. Yeah, so we're absolutely including Unnatural Selection because that seems like fun. Now, Darcy, what does that do? Dog, Duck, yeah. So basically you could be a dog. I'm actually going to add that. I don't know if that would really fit for mice. But actually it would. That's the thing. Awakened animals have actually a part of the Vorsal setting. So screw it. Yeah, let's see if we can roll ourselves a dog. In fact, my wife was actually playing a dog in our stream game a couple of years ago. If anyone remembers Fallon, the best boy, he was just a dog. He was just a good boy. With absolutely no kind of mysterious Fae-related backstory at all. But anyways, so these are some of the different options that you have in generating a character. You can actually build a character using all of these different options. You can generate a random level 1 character, or you can generate a level 0 character. Level 0? What's level 0? Well, level 0 is this fun little option where you're just playing a nobody. You're basically playing a commoner with no major skills or abilities. And if you survive your first adventure, then you get to level up and take your you become a level 1 character. Yeah, that's interesting. That's very interesting. But for the moment, we're just going to go with a random level 1. So I love this character creator and some of the different options that you have. You know, you can really get a bit granular, even though it's still random. So I like this option really the best fit. Always choose the class that best matches your stats, then generally pick an ancestry that suits the class. Or mixed, probably chooses the class that best matches your stats and then picks ancestry randomly. Full random. The class is chosen at random with no regard to stats. Ancestry is also picked random. Now, I'm going to go with best fit because I think that would basically it basically makes you a randomly generated character, but isn't broken. This character actually makes sense, you know? So that is 1 second. Yeah, Mycelians. Yeah, there's a lot of people playing Mycelian characters these days. There's a lot of mushroom people. There's a lot of fungi and fungal characters infecting us all. I love them. I love mushroom people. They're so interesting. There's just a lot of them about these days. It's like they're spreading. But yeah, hello, I am NPC 18. You may call me Steve. One day I may become a person. Pretty much, yeah. So this game is also, I would say, before I generate the character, I would say that Shadow Dark is definitely, as I mentioned before, I would say that the ticking clock on being stabilized mechanic, I would say that's I'd say that's really fair and reasonable, all things considered. Combat in this game, from what I have gone through, I've not been able to probably sit down and watch an actual playthrough yet. I've seen snippets and everything. It's just I've not had the time. This is the first day off I've had since going through all this and doing this research. This is all stuff that I've been doing in between other things through my week. So this is me this is basically me unpacking the week, all the stuff that I've been learning, and sharing it with you all to give you a complete behind the curtain look about what my thought process is, my design process is, and what I plan to do. So but yeah, so we're just going to generate a random level 1 character. But yeah, that was the thing I was going to say. It's lethal. The combat is kind of lethal from what I've been told. And so it becomes very wise to be able to generate a lot of characters at a reasonable amount of time. That doesn't mean that you can't, care about your character and all that, but it's unlike 5th edition, unlike, say, traditional D&D, where you're building up this one particular character, you've got all these ideas, all these stories, all of this, really, you've invested a lot into this character's arc and their story and the things that you want to do with them, and they're basically, it's a power fantasy. 5th edition, no matter what version it is, no matter what rules you're attacking on and everything, 5th edition is a power fantasy. That's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing at all, but that is what that game is. 5e is a power fantasy where you become very invested in the ongoing nature and the ongoing story and the rise in power of that one particular character that you're going to be playing for a large amount of time. Shadow Dark, on the other hand, you are a small, scared little thing, and rocks may fall and you may die very early on. That's just the nature of things. But don't worry, there's plenty other people just like you ready to take your place and continue on. I kind of like that. I kind of like that very different flavor, and I guess that is basically a preview of what the main thesis of this stream is going to be, and what my publishing philosophy is going forward for this year. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. But yeah, let's just make our best fit character. Labali, a Shalonian seer. Okay. So, alright, interesting. So, they are a drifter. You have not yet found a Jarl worthy of your loyalty. So, one of the resources for these... So, each zine that is being released, each one of the cursed scrolls is focused on a different aspect of the game. One of them was based on like the northern expanses, very Viking-esque, very Skyrim-esque in a way. Whereas another one that they're currently developing is based on jungle hex crawls. There's another that's focused on like a city point crawl, you know? You also have a desert-themed expansion as well. So all of these different disparate elements, they're helping to really flesh out the world of Shadowdark, or rather the options that you have to play in Shadowdark. So I've just wanted to call out that specific word choice there where it comes to Jarl. But yeah, you're a drifter. You haven't found someone worthy of your loyalty yet. The stats, I'm going to trust them as being fairly decent. And underneath it actually says, with these stats, these are some of the different options and how it would be a good idea for you. I would make a piss poor bard, but they thought seer was the best option. Potentially a priest as well, either a seer or a priest. But I am basically a Chalunian, contemplative, wise turtle beings who act with caution and carry their homes on their backs, which is going to be really useful when you're delving in the Underdark or the Shadowdark and everything. You know the Common and Chalunian languages. You also get +1 to your armor because you're wearing the shell. You're also a seer, baleful diviners who reek of smoke and blood. They untangle the whispers of the gods by reading the runes, the bones, and the stars. Their knowledge of fate allows them to bend it. They usually carry daggers, a stave, and a spear. They only wear leather armor. They have 1d6 hit points per level. And whenever they use a luck token, they add a d6 to the roll. So that's good. Ooh, that's overpowered a bit. No, but that's an official thing. Ooh, that's nice. I like that. So, a luck roll. Yes, there is actually one of the 5e mechanics that I mentioned previously. The luck system is kind of in here. Luck tokens are basically given out to specific players whenever their character does something amazing, or the player, impresses the GM with, good roleplay, or they just do something worthy of reward, and so they are given a luck point. The luck point can be traded between characters if they want to help out one of their friends who are struggling, and the luck point is basically a instant reroll. Oh, you failed that? Here, take this luck point. Okay, re-roll it. And whatever the re-roll result is, you have to take it. But this means you add a d6 to that re-roll. That's not bad. That's very, very good, actually. Let's see. Omen. 3 times a day, you can make a DC 9 wisdom check. On a success, you gain a luck token. Just, you can't have more than 1 luck token at a time. Okay, this, yeah, the seer's not too shabby. Spellcasting. You can cast seer spells that you know. You know 1 tier 1 spell of your choice from the seer spell list. Every time you gain a level, you choose a new seer spell to learn according to the spells known table. Use your wisdom stat to cast seer spells. So the wisdom on this character, yeah, so it's a +3 wisdom. Oh, wisdom's their highest stat, so yes, it makes perfect sense that the game said, yeah, no, this character should be a seer. That makes sense. And because they're a little squishy, I believe, it's, well, leather armor and cloth armor are two different things. So I think this is actually a really nice combination, especially with +1 armor class. Now, I know that this one's the Shalonian's very third party, but still, that's cool. That's kind of cool combination of things here. And it's going to show you how many spells you get over time. So at level 5, you have 2 tier 1 spells, you have 2 tier 2 spells, and 1 tier 3, and so on and so forth. And you'll notice that it only goes up to level 10, because in Shadow Dark, it's a 1 to 10 game, not 1 to 20 or anything like that. The numbers are kind of crunched and compressed. The math has been reduced. So it's just a little bit quicker to run, a little bit simpler. Doesn't mean easier. Well, it does mean easier to run, but it's not easier to succeed, if that makes sense. It's a squish. The numbers are all squished, so they're a little more condensed and refined, and I like that. Let's see. Seer spells, trance. Okay. Doesn't actually list what any of that stuff is, which is good because you want to actually, you don't want to give them everything from the rulebook. But yeah, and this is something as well, like I was saying before, whenever you level up, you don't pick a talent, you roll 2d6, and depending on what those rolls are, you get something from this particular chart here for your character. And that helps to keep the character fresh. Each character is going to be fresh and unique. It also prevents you from trying to, min-max and get the perfect item for your build. Because that's not the type of game this is. It rewards you just going out with whatever character you have and trying to have a unique experience with that unique character. And I like that. I do like that. So golden gear advancement. No. Oh, you can actually maybe level up through here as well. That's interesting. Also, like, alignment is actually a thing. It relates to what gods you have the ability to worship and everything. And again, at the end of the day, you can export this as a JSON. So things like Foundry, Owlbear Rodeo as well. I don't really use Owlbear Rodeo, but as you all know, I have made extensive use of Foundry over the years, so having a character that you've generated here that you can instantly plug into your virtual tabletop of choice, that's some good stuff. But yeah, so that in essence is, the character creator, the free character creator that you can use to pick up your things. And guess what? Hey, free character creator. Let's go back in time a second. What's this? Shadow Dark solo rules for the Shadow Dark RPG. I just want to confirm this. This 12-page booklet gives you the resources, roll tables, and alternate rules you need to play Shadow Dark RPG by yourself. Without a game master. Shadow Dark is an intuitive and Solo Dark is intuitive and complements the core Shadow Dark rules. So I was about to say, yeah, so you need the core rulebook. You need the core rulebook to play the solo version of the game. Yes. I think that's very fair. But yeah, I might have to set something up with this in the future. I think that would be for those who are curious about like watching a solo RPG and everything, that could be interesting. Yeah, I think I might check that out at some point. That's really cool. But yes, and yeah, I was thinking about Granny Z Zabornak as well. So yeah, that's the official stuff that's out. Actually, I don't know if Shadow Darklings itself is official or if it's a third-party website, but yeah, it's a great website. It's very, very useful. The other thing that I've been looking into is this. It's called Soul Blight. Now, the reason I'm looking at Soul Blight and some of the, in fact, let me just real quick, Shadow Rim, I think it was called. Shadow Shadow Rim. Let's see. I'm not sure about the exact location there, so here we go. Oh, it's on Drive-Thru RPG, so let's go straight to here. So yeah, Shadow Rim is a thing that I've heard good things about. Designed for Shadow Dark, Shadow Rim is a Skyrim-based setting for Shadow Dark. That's cool. That's very freaking cool. So yeah. Also, like the player companion, supposed to be really good. I'm in the process of going through some of these. So and Shadow Sun. Oh, I gotta see this real quick. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. A Shadow Dark setting. Shadow. I love that. Oh, I love that little guy. Interesting. Let me just see. See, I don't know if these ones are good or if they're just like, some people refer to it as almost like shovel content, where people just go out of their way to just churn out some stuff for a popular game without much rhyme or reason. And that's something I do not want to do. By the way, I'm being very aware of making something very specific for a specific system. And well, yeah, Shadow Sun is a dark apocalyptic desert setting for use with Shadow Dark. It's a bleak world scorched by an angry sun. Yeah, I wonder what psionics. I wonder what that is inspired by. Yeah, I wonder what old, 3.5 setting that is inspired by. Yeah. I like that Shadow Sun. Yeah, that's cool. I think, yeah, Dark Sun is definitely a good influence for this kind of thing there. So that makes perfect sense. But yeah, so you see, there are people who are making full settings for this system. And that's kind of what I'm thinking of doing with Warsaw. Am I moving away from Tales of the Valiant? Absolutely not. Am I going to take all the same content that I am using for Tales of the Valiant and then release the exact same content for Shadow Dark with just a couple of tweaks? No, I don't think I am. What am I making for Vagabond? I don't know yet. So here's what I'm thinking at the end of the day. I think that Vagabond and I think that Shadow Dark are two very different systems. They have different focuses. They're trying to do different things. And also Tales of the Valiant. All three of these games, I believe, are doing different things. I can't speak to the differences between Vagabond and Valiant just yet. But I'm pretty sure that there are some differences there. I did appreciate some of the stuff where it's like there was like I know that's like the rolling system, and again, like the combat system is very different. Here's the thing, I'm very early into reading up on Vagabond. The only reason I'm actually coming publicly and saying I'm actively looking into it as much as I am with Shadow Dark is because I like Indestructible. I really like his cadence. I do appreciate his content, and I think I owe it to the guy to really give his system a good, strong look to see what I can do with it. And that's the thing. What I want to do with all these different systems is I don't want to repeat the same content for 3, 4, 5 different systems. I think that's going to be so lazy and boring. And I know we said earlier, lazy is sometimes a good thing when it comes to at least prepping for games. But for selling content, I don't like lazy. I like bespoke. I like making tailored content specifically for system that it's intended to be run with. there is something to be said for like system agnostic stuff. And full disclosure, cards on table, if I wanted to make a system agnostic release, a document where it's literally just the lore and the maps and the NPCs and the plot lines and adventure hooks that I've been coming up with for my setting, then I could do that tomorrow. I could actually release a bunch of those very quickly and very easily. I don't feel excited or interested in making system agnostic content because personally, I could be wrong. I could be incredibly wrong, but for me personally, I don't think that's as interesting as having something that says compatible with 5e, compatible with Vagabond, built for Shadow Dark, you know? I think it's more interesting to have a very specific part of your world or a very specific thing that is taken from your world, and you make that version tailored to the system that it's run for. So, like, going back to Chaosium, Call of Cthulhu and everything, I think that one of the best things I ever did was leave 5th edition for a while, leave D&D 5e for a while, and run Call of Cthulhu for like over a year. Because that complete shift in polarizing systems, totally different focus, totally different type of game, that really helped remind me that not every single game should be the same. Not every single system needs to imitate the others. You need to be doing something unique. You need to have a specific focus. Call of Cthulhu is an excellent system for, investigation, like a skill-based game. I think that, as I've said previously, like 5e games as a whole, including Level Up 5e, Tales of the Valiant, anything like that that's under like the old 5e moniker, I think those are really good, heroic fantasy games, power fantasy games. I think that Pathfinder 2nd edition is similar, but has more of a focus on very crunchy combat, very, very crunchy, and situation-based, detail-based combat. So that's why I kind of put Pathfinder sort of similar, but kind of more in the same vein as D&D. And Shadow Dark. And now again, I'm repeating myself, I can't speak to what makes Vagabond different, what its real core is. Now, on the book, on the cover, it says pulp fantasy role-playing game. So, maybe it's going to tie in more with 5e and everything else. But I would like to think that it has more of a different feel than just different rules. Because if the rules lead you to the same result, then what is the point of not doing 5e? Other than, all the stuff that's been going on. So, I am in the process of developing material that is going to be very specifically for Shadow Dark. The material that I am developing is actually based, as I discussed in a previous stream, when I was talking about the random ass campaign that appeared out of nowhere, involving dragons getting sucked into a Dark Souls-esque world. I have been coming up with concepts and building up detail on my setting for a long time now. and I have a lot of different places and a lot of different stories that are ready for exploration. And there is a particular location which I think would be perfect for running in Shadow Dog. Now, those of you who are familiar with the old campaign that I used to run, I'm just getting a little sip real quick. Those of you who are familiar with when I ran a game on Dice and Dolts, Journey's channel, the Journey's Plays channel and everything, and that was the original iteration of Warsaw. It was for 5th edition, and a lot of that was focused on the dwarven city of Cosvel Grim. It was a dwarven city that was built unwittingly on top of a very ancient civilization, a very ancient city that had gone on into legend. It was considered a lost holy city to the dwarves and everything. So when they actually discovered it several hundred years ago, and they started to delve and go down in there, they unwittingly uncovered a few things. There was a few snafus, and then a massive sinkhole happened, and half the city was swallowed up. And lots of chaotic little things happened there. So I am a big fan of having modern cities built on top of things that they've completely forgotten about, because that's just how the real world is. You have no idea what's below your feet. The things that were there long before you, long before the city where you are now used to stand. Now, especially in like Europe, maybe in America, I mean, it would be a completely different culture. But yeah, spoiler alert, that there were people in America before the settlers came. But I'm a big fan of different layers of history buried literally under different layers of dirt and culture. And Cosvel Grim, which I streamed and was actually based on my first self-published releases, which if you give me a second, I'm gonna bring up. Boop. Oh, by the way, side note, beautiful artwork from my beautiful partner there. Love that. But yeah, no, my stuff, where is it now? Let's see if I have a cover real quick from Cosvel Grim. Seriously? No. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, it's fine. But anyway, I will say actually, tangentially related to this, it didn't inspire me so much, but it was basically something that fit with what my design philosophy already was, and it was the book Arcana of the Ancients. Monte-Cut games, Numenera, that kind of thing. I've always been a big fan of like ancient technology forgotten by the modern fantasy world. So that is kind of a big influence there. But yeah, Cosvel Grim wasn't the first time I did that. There's actually, let's just say there's a large number of places in my setting where that's kind of a thing, because these super ancient civilizations, they spread. They weren't in one tiny little point in the world. They were everywhere. And a lot of the landmarks, a lot of the things that people take for granted as just, oh, yeah, like the basalt structure, like that big sinkhole and everything. What caused that? Why is there a basalt structure in the middle of a landlocked area and not near the seafront as it should be? Now, and also, one thing that I do like, and one thing that I've always kind of chuckled at, I'm actually going to bring this over real quick, like a big world map and everything. This is the entire setting. Let me see. Yeah. So, full disclosure, a lot of this was made back when I was still trying to figure out the details of world building. You know, like tectonic plates and how the positioning of mountains would change the environment depending on wind direction. You know, the actual world building stuff. So I will fully admit there are some things about the maps of my world that don't quite make sense. One of the things I have retconned to, you know, kind of fit is the rivers. These, if you realize how big the world map is, let me just see if I can get a point of scale as a frame of reference for you. Yeah. So each one of these hexes is 120 miles. So you do the math and everything. That's basically like almost like a mile wide, and those go on forever. Those mile wide canals are huge. That makes no sense unless you make it make sense, and I chose to do so. Perhaps the world that these poor people are living on was carved for very specific purposes, and very large rivers like these. Well, what kind of creature would want incredibly large rivers to travel through very large landlocked areas with ease? I can't think of one right now. It would probably have to be something incredibly ancient, incredibly powerful, and incredibly far-sighted. And in case you hadn't guessed, it is, I've mentioned it before, I'll mention it again, my absolute favorite misaligned, maligned creature. It would be the aboleth. I freaking love aboleth as a concept. I think they're an amazing creature. And here's the best part. Yes, aboleth are included in Shadow Dark. So, yeah. Yeah. Is all I'm really gonna say on that right now. But yeah, so the particular thing I'm gonna do, however, there is a location. This is actually, so context, I have spent most of my time this particular section here. You see this little nook over here, you know, this little joint of the rivers and everything. What is this? Well, that is the location that I was talking about previously. That is Cusvel Grim. That is where my first PDF was based. This entire little section here. In fact, I'm actually going to bring up the map of that real quick to give you all a bit more context. But this was basically my original part of the world that I was building. See. Oh, Patreon. Yes, here we go. The Spectral Coast. Boop. Actually gonna, yeah. So this is actually where my original streamed game was set. So you'd have this was the Dwarven City, and basically everything. You know, I think they only ever went as far as like this area here. This was like the Fabrider estate and all that jazz. But basically this small section here, as you can see, is just a teeny tiny part of this massive, let's see, massive world, all of which I have some ideas and some story for. So am I ever really going to make a complete setting guide that goes into every single detail of every single location? I'm not too sure I will. But am I going to take different parts of this, and am I going to focus on them specifically and create stories unique to them, and then share those stories as their own little self-contained thing, and let people, if they're interested in finding out more about the weird-ass world where this takes place, maybe they can check out some of the Tales of the Valiant based stuff as well, or some of the, again, Vagabond, or some of the other content that I release. That in essence is what I am thinking I'm pivoting to. I think I'm going to be focused on making more self-contained, specific niche stories and content, stuff that, people can just run without needing to be hit over the head by this. Because let's be honest, at the end of the day, the only person who really cares about the full world that I have created to run games in is really me, because this is my world that I built. I know where everything is. I am deeply invested in this world. I'm not deeply invested in 5e. I'm not deeply invested in any particular system. Hell, all of this began because back in the day, I was trying to get a bunch of adult fantasy stories off the ground. That was my original project that I was working on. I actually think I have artwork of them. If you give me a moment. But there was, yeah. So I'm going to show. So this is Barb. She was. This is like some really old art, but Barb and Gabby. These were basically some of my original. These were like the main protagonists of the story I was working on. That was set in the world that would become Warsaw. Barb was basically a orc raised by humans. And she was basically, she was an archaeologist. She was really into uncovering and discovering lost hidden ruins and the truth of the world and everything. And she was kind of like the main character in like the first of what would be a whole string of different stories. And the world that I was setting it in basically grew out of this. And eventually, when I'd spent a bunch of time coming up with some plot and everything, I kind of came to the conclusion that, wow, I really love building the world. I really hate writing the story. I really hate the actual act of dialogue, scene description, pacing the scenes. And that particular thing, I was like, and this is like 15 years ago at this point, but I'm just like, I was like, this is not my thing. This is not my thing. So rather than have a complete psychotic breakdown, because I'd recently gotten into tabletop games around about that time, I was actually a big fan of major. I don't really know what they're doing these days, so this is like several years ago, like 15, almost 20 years ago at this point. Oh my gosh. But Critical Hit, not Critical Role, Critical Hit was a D&D 4th edition podcast by the website Major Spoilers, and I just fell in love with the characters. I thought the system was really interesting, and so I made a campaign, or at least I plotted out a campaign for 4th edition D&D that was centered around this spot right here, and Barb was going to be a character in it, and it was basically she was going to be like connected to, she was my connective tissue, so I kind of had her backstory and some of the stuff she was doing planned out in the book, and I basically translated some of the book content into what this campaign would be. And we only ever sadly did one session because trying to get a bunch of trying to get a cohesive group of people together for D&D on a regular basis, that's a thing. That's a whole thing. But I did enjoy playing the game. I did enjoy running 4th edition, and my wife, she was one of the players. That was the first time that she played her druid Ajale. who ended up returning to Warsaw much later on in the 5th edition version. But the basic shtick with this particular location was, again, let's just say, I don't want to spoil things, but very similar to what's going on in Kurzweil Grimm. So, you know, like there's a whole civilization, there's a whole city on the top, but below, oh, the sights, oh, the things that dwell beneath. And I think Unity, the city of Unity, is going to be my main focus for the Shadow Dark Ball. Now, before I get too deep into the weeds with that, let me just check the chat real quick. Oh, in terms of unique role-playing systems, in my mind, nothing beats the Wretched and Alone engine, as it uses a Jenga tower. Ah! Oh, that's only suited for solo play. I see, yes. So, like Fear, basically. Ironically enough, I recently just picked up a Jenga tower. The problem is with that, it's that particular system, which I think that's really interesting. I think that's a really creative use of an existing artifact and gamifying it in a very different way, which I really like that. I really do like that as a concept and everything. Unfortunately, that doesn't really translate well to a virtual tabletop. And I don't know, for me personally, I don't really have that much success with physical D&D, like, you know, people being in the same space. Same with play-by-post D&D. It's like I've done some of it, but I much prefer like live virtual tabletop, because I get to build more of an atmosphere, more of an ambiance, especially with things like Foundry. Hero Forge, not so much. Not Hero Forge. Fantasy Grounds, not so much. Very different focus with that tabletop than Foundry, but yeah, it's just like the tool specifically is not really something that you know, works for yeah. The Jenga tower doesn't really work well for what I like to run. So but yes. Yeah, Kurzweil Grimm with Dave and his Gameporium. Let's see. Yeah, and Kurzweil Grimm is literally just a drop in an ocean of this world. Yeah, getting a group together can be really tricky. If you hypothetical, then you might not be the rules. Well, I tell you what. If you just drop me a thing on Blue Sky or something, I will check them out, because again, I've never heard of those before. But that was Wretched and Alone. Sounds interesting. But please, all I ask is, if it's something really good, don't let it be too good and make me have to do another stream next week saying, hey, so about all the shit that I was talking about these past 2 weeks, fuck that, fuck Shadow Dark, this game's where it's at. No, I will fucking go insane if that's the case. But anyway. I was going to do something before I chatted about Unity and the setting. But let me just, you know what I should do? I should check my notes. So we were talking about some of the existing third-party settings. I kind of glossed over it, but the Skyrim one, Shadowrim, and there's another one called where are you now? Where did I put you? Soulblight. Yes, Soulblight. I've been doing a lot of research on these because essentially that's kind of what I'm thinking of doing. Where I could. I'm basically seeing if it's viable to create an entire version of Vorsal just for, you know, Shadow Dark. I basically give the whole thing, but realistically, as we're discussing, I don't think that's really what I need to do. I think for the moment I'm going to focus on just putting out specific more niche focused content that is all tied to the same world. So different systems, same world, same setting. And from there, if the demand grows for it, then in a year or two, then maybe I will create a specific version of Vorso for Shadow Dark. However, I think right now my main drive is going to be focused on more specific niche content. But what does that mean for the stuff that I've already been making? Now, like, as you see here, the, where are we now? Yeah. So all the work that I put into the Coalition, that was supposed to be the first setting that I was working on. I fully intend to keep this pretty much unchanged. I've come too far. I've spent far too long working on this, and specifically trying to make this fit for a 5e based game to go back now. So the Coalition setting guide is absolutely going to be using a 5e rule system. Will I specifically be using Tales of the Valiant / Black Flag content, however? That is something that I am undecided. The original reason I delayed it for about a year is because I wanted them to release Tales of the Valiant. I wanted to see how the heritage system worked. And I would say at this stage, when it comes to Tales of the Valiant and its character creation process and everything, given the fact that I've been let me actually bump back over to here real quick. Given the fact that with Fantasy Grounds, all the different character creation options that I have, in fact, sorry, let me see if there's a way I can actually get game capture, so we can get the full screen. There we go. Okay, so yeah, basically with this guy here, one of the things that I have appreciated in regards to the way this system works is I can easily add, mix and match different backgrounds. So let's see, let's just go with lineage real quick. Just jump straight over here, if it'll let me. So we have the Tales of the Valiant stuff, but we also have all of the Legacy 5th edition stuff that fits together seamlessly. And I think, honestly, I'm still of the mind that the new Tales of the Valiant system, it's very open-ended, where this could mean pretty much anything, whereas these are far more specific and niche. But for this kind of game, for a 5e game, I think specific and niche is kind of where it's at. So again, I don't know. Here's the thing. You can mix them. You can have a character with this kind of background and a character with this kind of background, and they're going to be absolutely fine. There's going to be zero issue for the most part. But the reason I was waiting so long for working on my game, on the setting guide for Vorsel and everything, is that I wanted to make sure that the content that I was putting out would fit with the new vision that they had. And at this point, I'm like, well, because it's so nebulous and non-specific, is there any point for me to even contribute anything to that system? Yeah. I had an initial draft where I was going through some of the potential lineages. So, like with the Kingdom of Lilith, I actually had somewhere in my Google Drive. If you give me a moment, I might even be able to find that. But let's see, setting guide, Lilith. I want to say it's going to be towards the back of this. It'd be under player options. No, I think I flat out removed it. Did I flat out remove it? Yeah, I think I did. Oh no, oh, the player options might be, bear with me just one moment, yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's like, it must be in a different version of the document. But anyway, no. What I did was I tried to break down the different regions, the different locations, and I was trying to figure out, okay, what character background would fit here. What, I was trying to make something unique for each area on the map, and I'm like, that's a lot of work. And for a system that I don't really believe in, and that's a really strong thing to say, but for a system that I don't know is necessary yet, given the early nature of TOV, I don't think putting all that time and effort into making unique backgrounds and unique lineages and unique heritages for region-specific stuff, or something that would be specific for my setting, I don't know if that's a valuable use of my time. So, I'm basically looking at all the stuff that really makes Tales of the Valiants, and all the stuff that's very specific to that system. And I'm basically looking at it and I'm thinking, do I really need to tether myself as tightly as I am to this? Or should I just make a very generic 5e compatible thing? So that's kind of the thing. That's kind of the issue there. And do I want to focus on like the Black Flag license more than the TLV license? And I think it is leading towards more of the Black Flag. And so as well as the whole licensing thing and the mechanics thing, this is another thing that's kind of, I've been second guessing myself. Is there really anything from Tales of the Valiant and Kobold Press's previous releases, as I can show you over here again? I'm jumping back and forward quite a bit, but there are various let's see, let's actually go with our monsters, the NPCs. So not the SRD, not flea mortals, anything like that. Let's just focus on, you've got things like Tome of Heroes, Tales of the Valiant, specifically the Monster Vault. Is there anything here that is unique, that is absolutely unique to their material, that I cannot live without in my setting? And I think when you get right down to it, there is one thing that I kind of pinned a lot on that is probably the only reason why I wouldn't make a complete break away. And that's going to be these guys. Now, if you never watched my original stream and everything on the Jonas Plays channel, the game's set in Cusvel Grim. I actually was deeply inspired by this creature, the Voidling. The original version of this creature was something that came up in the Tome of Beasts, which was... This was how I discovered Kobold Press, by the way. Their monster creation, their unique monsters and all that, the various different types of dragons, and really interesting creative, creatures that they come up with. And the Voidling, this little guy, he inspired a whole different flavor for my setting and some of the different stuff that's going on there. And so I referred to them as Voidlings. There was a very particular one who was spending a lot of time causing chaos for the group in the shadows, pun intended. His name was Mazaina. That basically loosely in Latvian translates to Little Shadow. Why was I using Latvian? Well, that's a slightly longer conversation there in regards to what I based, what I ended up adding to the setting of Warsaw over the years that I was developing it. But this little creature, specifically, he's a creature of the void. And void magic, void energy, void corruption, as opposed to infernal or demonic and everything. The void became a very, very specific flavor that I was working with for my world, and these guys fit perfectly. So I just basically took them whole cloth. I said, yeah, these are voidlings, and these are now a part of the world, which has somewhat hampered me in moving to different systems, at least in regard, because the whole reason I went with Tales of the Valiant is because I've used, like this guy here and other creatures, I've made so much out of using their creatures in my games, in my world and everything, that I feel like removing this would remove a part of the Warsaw. That having been said, if I go over to, let's see now, was it Flea Mortals? No, it was Kingdoms and Warfare, I think. Was it Kingdoms and Warfare? No, I'm a fool. It was there's a point to this, don't worry. There is a point to this. MCDM Flea Mortals. Okay, I'm a dipshit. Now with Flea Mortals, there is a particular race. You know what? I'm just going to open it through the book because that's going to be quicker, because I can't actually remember the name of them. So, there's a particular psionic race that likes to live underground, and they're called voiceless talkers. And they are, I mean, you're not fooling anybody, really, in regards to what this is, what the inspiration was. Now, this is a unique character that is owned by MCDM. These are the voiceless talkers, and they appear to be cybernetic, psionic, technologically superior tentacle creatures that tend to lurk underground. Absolutely no relation to the very official Wizards of the Coast, Forgotten Realms, Planescape villain that is owned specifically by Wizards of the Coast. You see what I'm saying there? So, I think that I've just closed the window there. Whoops. I think when I get right down to it, rather than just using pre-existing stuff wholesale, like the Voidlings, I think it's going to serve me better to take inspiration from them and make something more unique to my world and my setting. Then obviously take inspiration, but don't steal outright, because that would basically be one of the last remaining shackles that allows me to just do whatever I want for whatever system. Because one of the reasons why I've been so tied to making a quote-unquote 5e based game for this world and everything is because there's been so much inspiration from D&D. Again, I've been doing this since 4th edition D&D and like all the various character cultures and everything, like that whole fantasy melting pot of dragonborn and elves and dwarves and snake people and this, that, and the other. Like the whole thing with the other inspirations I used to have, like World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft was a massive inspiration, and that's kind of how I run my goblins and everything. And the Naga, specifically in World of Warcraft, I actually really enjoyed the Naga concept. And one final race from World of Warcraft which made a massive impact on this world of mine, and that all kind of ties into the stuff that I'm doing for Shadowdark, let's put it that way. But the point I'm trying to make is I basically took those ideas and I used them as inspiration. I wasn't just copy and pasting stuff. But actually, no, that's not the point of what I'm trying to make. It's actually the inverse. I apologize, and let me explain. I have felt tethered to these types of game systems because, well, I mean, if you want tieflings, you gotta use D&D. If you want to have Dragonborn and everything, these are very specific things which, even though they're kind of alluded to in other medium, some of these things are just flat out owned by these companies. So it's been a case of having to choose which company I want to tether myself to for my world, and it's been a difficult process to extradite myself and untangle myself from the inspiration. Basically converting what was taken whole cloth and reconverting it into something original and then inspired by, and I think the Voidlings are basically going to be a big part of that. And once I've figured that out, I think I'm going to be in a much better position to make what I want on my terms for any system. Because if I just flat out say, this is the Voidling stat block for Shadowdark, and I'm literally just using the same design concepts and everything, it's like, well, no, then you've just taken Kobold Press's intellectual property. You've taken their ideas. Whereas if I have the Mazaina, like I convert that into, and I'd rather not have that be their race name, but I'd much rather still have that be the unique character, because again, Mazaina, the character, that's mine. I came up with him. I came up with his raison d'etre. I came up with his story and everything. He is based on a pre-existing stat block of a pre-existing creature that was made by another company. But the character and everything that he does specifically to him is unique to me. So, what I need to do is take the stuff that inspires me and remake it into something unique that I own. Yeah, that's the basic rambling thrust of what I'm trying to get out there. But yeah, and also cheers for the DM cork, much appreciated. So kind of went off base a little bit. I hope that makes sense to everybody. I know I'm kind of going in a bunch of different directions here, but the point that I'm trying to make is I am trying to untangle a world which was made very tangled in one specific property, in one specific, well, actually in a couple of different influences. As I said, World of Warcraft was a major influence, D&D was a major influence, but because it was convenient back in the day, it was convenient for me to use D&D as the basis of which I told this story through this world. So I would take a lot of like D&D based material and use that to flesh the world out. You know, that was basically some of the supporting pillars that I would build more stuff around, like with Mazina. Now I'm in the position where I want to really do something with it, and the OGL license and everything else that's been going on has made it so I now have to very carefully, surgically remove a lot of stuff that I can't use, while keeping the basic structure and keeping the spirit of what I was making intact. That's kind of the trick, and that's kind of what I'm going through at the moment. So yeah, pretty much nothing else to say there really. That is what I'm trying to do here now. So I think to get back on track, to flat out, this is what I want to do for this year. I am still working on getting the coalition setting, like this specific part of my world, which I will actually say I've committed a lot of time to it, but unfortunately it's like, I would say it's the most generic and boring part of my setting, because it's the Game of Thrones location. It's all of the various quote unquote, I mean, originally it was going to be like the human lands, and then over here's the human lands, and then you have the dwarven lands over here, and then there's like the wild and blah blah blah. You know, I would say some of the stories over here are more unique. These are more unique and everything, but I've come too far now. I'm not going to waste what I have. And honestly, in retrospect, the more I've gone in deep and the more I've figured out, I actually am very proud of what I have with the Coalition. I genuinely think that the Coalition, it has a very interesting flavor. Yes, obviously Game of Thrones and that whole medieval Renaissance era, you know, feudal kingdom type thing, it's been kind of done to death a lot, but my version, I think, it has its own unique flavor, and the various political machinations and how all these different kingdoms are interacting with each other, all the various plots that are going on, all the various NPCs and characters. I truly believe that this is a self-contained little thing, like this hex crawl that it's going to be. I genuinely think that this is going to be a location where you can tell a lot of really interesting stories, and you are going to have content to run forever. Is the rest of what I have planned for Vorsal and the future going to be as in-depth and as granular as this? I don't think it is, and I don't think it should be. Originally, the idea was this entire continent, that was going to be the first book, and then these areas here would be like the DLC content. And I'm like, no, we can't do that. It's madness. We just can't. I've gone way too granular and way too in-depth on this stuff here now for that to make sense. So I think that this particular slice is going to take me, I'd say about 2 or 3 years to really get out properly. But if I'm doing that whole once a quarter, I'm releasing something, and honestly, I might step up production. It might be more than that. We will see. Time will tell. But I think that this section here is its own thing, specifically for 5th edition rules. It is focused on political machinations. It's focused on hex crawling. It's focused on faction play. It's focused on going to different locations and basically discovering all the different things that are going on and how they interact with each other. No matter where you go, there's going to be something to do, and it's going to lead you somewhere else. So, and also, the last most important thing for me for this particular project is, no matter what you do, you are going to make a difference. You are going to, by no fault of your own, purely by design of me, the characters are going to stumble into a situation and their actions will make a difference that will cause ripple effects. They are going to change what is going on in this setting by very nature of their actions. That is my intent with the Coalition. So, Coalition is going to be its own thing that will be 5th edition based. As for the Shadow Dark thing, I think we're going to be focusing more on the north, the desert landscape of the Union, the City of Unity, and I think I'm going to, because I've spoken quite a lot about the Coalition, I think I'm going to give a few bits and pieces about what I have planned for this, and we'll probably wind things down, because I've actually been talking for nearly 2 hours already. Went a little bit longer than I thought. I thought I would, just do some broad strokes and then I'd really go into more like my plans for the world building, but my focus shifted slightly, shall we say. I've spoken about the Coalition. I've spoken about how that is basically a Game of Thrones type area. Now, I actually have a different version of this map, which I think is going to help express a little bit more about what my ideas are. If I can find it. I don't hate. I'm just going as fast as I can. I don't want to eat up the whole night doing this. Can we get more of an open recent thing? No. I don't know where it is. That's irritating. Okay, fair enough. No worries. It exists somewhere. I just do not know where it is, sadly. It is not in test maps. Yeah, it's fine. Anyway. So. The Coalition is, again, Game of Thrones area. The Forge Lands, as we mentioned, and the Spectral Coast, that is more the Dwarven settlements. Those are like the Dwarven lands. Lots of like gnomes, lots of halflings. Not just like the little people, but the main flavor of that would be based more on like say like a Scandinavia, Sweden, lots of like more like European horror, and also like that would be the surface. The underground sections, as I mentioned in the past, a lot of the underground would be more focused on like this really almost not high tech, but it's very steampunk-esque. This is a culture where they have been developing ever since they raided the ruin of Nelial underneath Cusvel Grim. The technology that they found there basically has kick-started their industrial revolution several hundred years or maybe even a century earlier than it should. And so this is where you would have a whole underground civilization of steam rails and tram lines and like underground research laboratories and factories. So the surface is more pristine and beautiful looking, but underground, that's where all your steampunk, tanks and clockwork robots and all that kind of stuff is going to be. At this point in time, I don't really have a solid idea for like a quote-unquote game system that I would stick to that other than regular 5e. But the piece on the eastern side, the Spectral Coast, that kind of stands apart from the Forge Lands, even though it is technically part of them. For Svelgrim specifically, let's just say anything that is within a certain radius of the Unspeakable Kingdom, which is a place surrounded by an impenetrable vortex of storms and chaos. Anything within a certain radius has a certain taint to it, shall we say, a radial taint. And the Spectral Coast is called as such because of its high proportion of undead, specifically the free undead. These are undead with basically self-awareness. They kind of remember who they are, what they are. They realize they can't die, and pretty much most of the world wants to fix that problem. That is kind of some of the stuff that's been going on over there, and that's some of the stuff that I've explored previously. The Union, however, that's sort of like the third major power. There's almost like there's like three different governments that operate on this main landmass. The Coalition, which is all the different feudal kingdoms, the Forge Lands, which is again sort of like the steampunk tech thing, and then the Union. The Union was formed about 2,000 years ago when an alliance of elves, dwarves, and men marched north from their various kingdoms down here, and they marched north to take out a necromancer who was leading a hell-touched army. And now hell-touched is the term that I kind of use for races like not just tieflings, or what mechanically would be tieflings in regular D&D. Or in Tales of the Valiant, they actually have a very particular name. Let me just see if I can remember that real quick. I can't, it doesn't matter, but Tales of the Valiant, they have their own unique name. Anyway, there was a collection of orcs, goblins, tieflings, all these different races that are said to be tainted by infernal or demonic energies. Not quite the origin story for maybe some other settings, but that's the origin legends for mine. So this necromancer, an individual by the name of Matinave, they were set up in a temple out in the desert. Eventually, their grand army of all the horrible monster creatures were basically smashed by this alliance, this union of different good aligned races. And so the vile, monstrous races were cast back out further into the wilds, the deserts, further north. And the Union basically settled. They took Matinave's capital for their own, and the city was renamed Unity in commemoration of the great noble sacrifice that these various races made. And as such, they basically, the Union became its own thing. A self-contained collection basically like dwarves, elves, and humans all as equals. It was a very egalitarian culture and everything. Of course, over the past 2,000 years, it has become a thing. Let's just say that. So it has continued to expand its borders, as some empires are wont to do. It has actually started taking over some of the desert regions that the quote-unquote monstrous races were a part of, but in their infinite mercy and forward-thinking mentality, the Union now views goblinoids, orcs, hell-touched races. It now views them as equal citizens and has deigned to permit them entry into the Union and given them citizenship, where they're almost treated like people. So you kind of get the vibe of like at least the culture in regards to this section here. So a lot of what I have planned for the Shadow Dark game is basically going to be a translation of what I had set up for that 4th edition game, which had all of this backstory and everything, and a lot of stuff involving the history of the various races that were kicked out by the Union, why the Union was really founded, what was really going on at the time, and how history is written by the winners, and what is buried deep underground, and what it was that Matanave was really doing at this temple. Because as far as these guys were concerned, of course, a massive army of all these abominable monster races, they're going to come and attack us, so we need to do a preemptive extermination of them. Yes, nobody really thought that perhaps all of the alliance of goblins and orcs and the tieflings and everything, that they were actually trying to stop something far worse. Yeah. But that would imply that their people are not just monsters to be hit for loot and XP. But yeah, that is kind of the little plot seed and the little thing that's going to be, I think that I'm going to be working on for Darkest Dungeon there. That I would say is the next big thing that I'm working on. Now, other projects, again, I can't speak to anything in regards to Vagabond and everything. I would need to take some time to do that, but I think I'm honestly best served at this point primarily focusing on my Tales of the Valiant project, which is going to be the Coalition, and the Shadow Dark project, which is going to be Unity. Am I going to do a full breakdown of the entire Union, all the stuff that's there, like I am with Coalition? I don't believe so, because that's not the point of Shadow Dark. As we've discussed, the point of Shadow Dark is delving into danger and darkness, and the City of Unity is definitely going to provide that. So I think, by and large, that's pretty much it, really. He's back. Hello. The free undead are like revenants but different. Yes, essentially, yes. I would say this actually, the free undead, they were actually the other major influence that I have, which is ironically getting its own TTRPG system in the near future. And I want to say, is it Moldivius? I got Moldivius and Chaosium mixed up earlier. I apologize. Chaosium are the people who do Call of Cthulhu. Moldivius do other licensed products such as Fallout and so on. But I believe, please correct me if I'm wrong, I believe Moldivius are currently working on a Discworld tabletop RPG, which this somehow slipped me by. I keep hearing about it and I keep forgetting to properly go in and really give it a look, but I'm excited. The last I heard about something for Discworld was like GURPS, way back in the day. That was a book I always wanted to pick up, the GURPS Discworld book, but yeah, the stars never aligned, or rather my my complete lack of money never allowed me to pick that up. But yeah, the undead, the free undead, are actually inspired by the way undead are handled in Terry Pratchett's Discworld series. Specifically, like zombie lawyers and stuff like that. It's like Red Shoe, I believe, is one of my favorite characters. It's been a while since I read Soul, but yeah, like Red Shoe, who was the I think he was part of the Watch books, which is basically the City Watch miniseries that is within the Discworld setting. But yeah, the way that you have these undead people who, basically, they're still people, they're just living challenged. And how that works in that particular setting, I was like, okay, that's really interesting. How would I make that work in this setting? And that's kind of how a lot of stuff has happened with Warsaw, honestly. It's like, that's a cool idea. How does that work? How can I make that work? How can I make that cohesively fit within a shared world? And that's what this is, honestly. That's what all of this is about at the end of the day. Modifius are working on Discord. Yes, I am very interested in those role players, said Death. Let's see. Equal but not the same in regards to the various citizens of the Union. Yes, you are 100% correct there. 100% correct. Let's see. The Union, where you can become anything. Chances of becoming anything depend on your character's race, income, and favor to the state. Success not guaranteed. Yeah, 100%. That's 100% the sort of vibe of the Union I'm going with. Very hypocrisy at its best. Basically, there's a lot to talk about the Union in a future video, I think. But and some of the ideas and the flavor that I have for them. But yeah, I think that specifically the City of Unity, Shadow Dark, that is what I'm focusing on. And before I go, I will say this, a different project, one of the original stories that I was going to write, I had all that stuff with Barb that I mentioned previously, Barb the archaeologist. Tyke and I was very based around the story of dragons and the Dragonborn. This is basically where they came from. And if you know anything about Warsaw, you know that, well, every time that people go to bed, they are reminded as they sleep that dragons do not exist. There are no shapeshifters wandering the streets, changing people's memories of things that did not happen, and so on and so on. But I basically was planning. There was another book which was focused on a Dragonborn character by the name of Mestra Turano. And he was basically a wealthy heir to one of the ruling families. Not a prince, but he was like, you know, a noble born. And the story was basically going to follow him and his fall from grace as he basically stumbled across a forbidden artifact from the founding of the island. And the story was going to focus a lot on his, like, the actual lineage of the Dragonborn, because how do you have... The problem that I was trying to answer with this story was, how do you have a Dragonborn race if dragons don't exist? What's the cognitive dissonance there? And the response was, what I can say is that in regards to the Warsaw, the race known as Dragonborn were originally taken from elves. They were elves originally, and something was done to them, and they just evolved, and they very quickly evolved. They were basically transformed into a draconic hybrid. And the story was basically focused partially around uncovering that, and more about like the specifics of their culture. But then it kind of became like a more personal revenge story about, again, he was a noble who fell from grace, and it was more of a revenge story about the people who were responsible for that. And it would basically take him on a bit of a tour around like the edges of the Union and everything, and maybe some of the coalition as well. But he would basically be, the outcast who builds an army to return to retake his homeland, kind of thing. But the main character, Mestra, was not a good guy. He was basically a bit of a shit. I kind of based him on a little bit of I actually based him on Eric Roberts, the actor, specifically Eric Roberts and his portrayal of the Master in the 1996 TV movie for Doctor Who. Very specific frame of reference there, but I think you kind of get the vibe I was going for. Very condescending, full of himself. And that was a very D&D-esque character type story there. And there was a bit of fleshing out of like there was a assassin organization that he was a part of for a while. There was a whole thing I had planned, but that eventually kind of again fizzled out when I realized that writing the stories wasn't as engaging as building the world that they took place in. And so that's kind of where Taikanai stands in relation to everything else. I'm going through the list, so I might as well do these last two bits and pieces real quick. Let's see. I may have gotten the Union's immigration. Dragons, Dragonborn, none of that is true in Warsaw. They are fictions to scare children at best. Nobody of sane mind would ever believe in them, or if they did, they'd change their minds very soon. Eric Roberts is the Master. It always felt like he was going to chew on the banisters of the city. Yeah. And it's fun. I liked it. It was fun. But yeah, since I'm so close to at least finishing, again, as I mentioned before, this whole section here, the Cruxian Combine, this is where the characters live. This is where things start. This is where things happen. And other places in the Warsaw, like Vattenberg and everything, those are places that things come from, or you would go to, but I wouldn't say these are the starting zones so much. This is kind of the base Warsaw experience, if that makes sense. I think I mentioned in previous streams the two mountain kingdoms, Jabal Hari and Hajiz Rahib, and I apologize if those are the mispronunciations of what I have written down there. I made up a weird-ass fantasy world. I'm a white dude. Don't sue me, please. But yeah, Jabal Hari, for those of you who were in the Kuzvel Grim campaign, that was where Icarus, the Aarakocra, played by Kuba, was from. Mountain Kingdom, ruled by a hobgoblin queen. I rather like the concept of these small mountain kingdoms sending out envoys. So traditionally monstrous races doing noble things and everything, or like being diplomatic with other civilizations, I thought was kind of interesting. Especially since, I mean, part of it, I guess, is because I've always been a Horde player in World of Warcraft. So again, World of Warcraft, Discworld, 5e as a whole, or rather D&D, rather as a baseline. These were kind of like the bones and the building blocks that inspired me for all of this. So very briefly, I go through some of this in the primer, which I'm working on, but Sikir Hiem, that is basically a small oasis in the middle of like the deserts. Let me see if you can see more. Yeah, so it's basically like an oasis in the middle of the deserts and everything. And in this region, there is basically there is a hidden city by the name of Nitab. Nitaeb? I'll figure out Nitab. And this is, I would say, this is the #1 bastion of the trolls. The trolls, the Grendel, the half-trolls, the trollkin, whatever you want to call them, they are another major part of Vorsal, which I haven't really been able to explore much on stream, except I will say, as a reveal, there have been certain characters that appeared in the Cusvel Grim game that they appeared as one race, but they were actually something else. Trolls in my setting, they're kind of inspired by, again, the Zandalari from World of Warcraft, but also, races that walk amongst the others. They basically can obfuscate themselves, they can change their form, they can pretend to be something they are not. And so the trolls and everything, they have access to knowledge that many people in the world would find impossible. They are basically one of the oldest races. They had probably one of the first empires, like a long time ago. They have sort of like they've regressed somewhat. They've gone through some ups and downs and everything. But I would say the height of their civilization, if that's the best word for it, would be in this region here. Enclosed, isolated, often forgotten, and very hard to get to, but nigh impossible to leave if they choose to not let you leave. Let's see. As they head up to, like, again, like the northern wildlands, this would basically be off the the territory of the Union and everything. This would be more like your traditional, like, sort of like desert cultures, Satyr, Centaur, I should say, not Satyr, very different vibe. Just basically, it's a very loose concept I have here, except for this particular patch over here, this little curve. If memory serves, yeah, Iblis Kapai. Whenever I use the term Iblis, it's usually a reference to demons or devils. There was a thing that happened here. There is a place that is well guarded, and there might be something ancient and evil buried within there. That's generic enough to where that could be most of Vorsal, honestly. But again, the orcs and the goblins and everything, they were trying to do something here and failed. They might have succeeded over here. I'll just say that for now. But further up north, we have, I would say this is the last thing I'm going to focus on here. But I'm going to save this for next week, really. But I would say all of this is going to be included, for the most part, in the primer that I'm releasing. We have Chakram. This is the place where a lot of the awakened animals come from. We've had people playing, like, in D&D, you would say Kenku, or that sort of like awakened creature, like dog people, turtle people, like hippo people, whatever. That would kind of be this area here. So if you're a big fan of Humblewood, like bird folk, owl people, that kind of thing, anything that has that little bit of dark forest whimsy, that's sort of this area to the north. This would be Moiscura, specifically. Its own self-contained kingdom of animal people. And the whole reason for that to exist would be its proximity to Fehar. Fehar is the epicenter, that's ground zero for Elven culture, but specifically Fey culture. This is where the Fae entered into this world a very long time ago. This was ground zero for their intrusion into this world. And so, you know, a lot of the stuff that they have done, a lot of their ruins and everything have kind of spread over to these points because it all came from here. So, I would say another thing would be Chakram as a whole, even though I've got like the cute, whimsy, talking animals type place. I would say the general vibe of this would be more akin to sort of an ancient Greece type thing. Very Assassin's Creed Odyssey, very Hercules. You know, I would say like these guys would be kind of inspired by sort of like Sparta in a way as well. Although I have mentioned previously, like with Cosmogrim, some of the dwarven culture had a certain like a Sparta vibe. A lot of that is inspired by, you know, things from this area as well. But yeah, like lots of half elves, lots of minotaurs, lots of centaurs and everything. That's kind of the general vibe of Chakram in this region as well. So I think for the most part, those are like sort of like broad strokes. That's kind of that particular section, and it's my intention in the future to have a little bit of something in these different areas. Now, what it's going to be, I don't know. But I think I've bored people enough. Acropolis, totally not built with columns in mind. Yes, indeed. And we don't speak of Perko, the continent where the very fast panda folk first appeared. Actually, no. No. I would say the panda people, they, again, probably maybe over here. They might have some over there. Bear folk are a thing. But, yeah, no, I would say... Yeah, that's something for another day. I would say that's something for another day. But specifically the Vattenberg Empire and everything else, I would say that's a good chunk of... as you can see, there's a lot of detail. There's a lot of locations there. That is more future stuff. I would say that would be the main expansion for future things. All I'll say is, here be dragons. We'll leave it at that for now. But yeah, that is broad strokes some of the stuff that's going to be covered in the primer. Again, all of these locations, the Throne of Night, the Land of Monsters, Tembok Iblis, and that which must be forgotten. All of these places, I have a little bit of something for all of them. Am I going to flesh them out as much as I am with the coalition? Fuck no. But yeah, I figured that if I was going to try and you know, keep telling all these different stories in the same world, I at least have to make it somewhat coherent and somewhat you know, at least have the broad strokes mapped out, and that is what the primer is going to be. And I still hope to get that released in, I would say, by the end of March, start of April. It just depends how much focus I'm putting on a particular system, or if that literally is just a system agnostic thing. I know I said that I wasn't super into system agnostic stuff, but I think given the fact that that is the broad strokes guide to the world as a whole and just the general flavor, honestly, I think I'm kind of doing myself a favor by removing anything specifically for just 5e in that, and let that be its own thing as an introduction to this world. And from then, I'm going to focus on the more minutiae, specific locations for specific systems. But anyway, I have been talking for nearly 2.5 hours. I if you're not done, I certainly am. So, oh, Panda Express. Oh, because of the font. I thought you were making a Mr. Pandaria joke. Okay, yeah. It is basically the Panda Express font, isn't it? Yeah, okay. Good point, well made. Thank you. I wasn't quite following. You know what, yeah, I will say this. This particular map, the font choice for certain regions was very deliberate. As you can see, for example, like the Forge Lands and all the areas run by the dwarves and everything have like a very specific industrial style, whereas the Spectral Coast, which is a little more sinister and horror and undead themed, that has its own specific set of fonts there. The Coalition, which is a more Renaissance, medieval, fantasy, feudal vibe, has a very particular flavor. The Union again, Sikahijam. Some of these more eastern type areas, I guess, like the mountain kingdoms of these here, they are very like eastern coded, and so on and so forth. Again, like you notice, these two regions have a different flavor to this region here, and a lot of that is down to the choice of typography when coming up with this was very specific and deliberate. But that's just something I thought I'd highlight for the future. Anyways, thank you for watching. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for spending some time. I'm so sorry. But I hope it was informative. I hope it was, useful and, at least partially entertaining. I'm very excited to be, continuing to work on this, to continue developing stuff in the setting. And I am very excited to see what people think of the material that I will be bringing out for this year. It's going to be a lot of work, but I really hope that the stories that I'm able to tell and the resources and tools that I'm able to put out to allow people to tell stories in this world really resonate with people. I hope this entertains. I just hope it, I hope it does something. I want to do something rather than just pull out a bunch of like shovel content, like slap a logo on it and be like, hey, buy my thing. That's, I really want to be making a mark with this stuff, and time's gonna tell. Definitely ambitious. Definitely aiming high with this. I'm just trying to be as practical as I can while aiming high, and seeing what I can do with my time here on this little earth of ours. So, have yourselves a good one, and be safe, be well. Thank you again for taking the time, and watch this space and the social medias and everything, because there's going to be so much. There's going to be so much. So actually, let's go down the list real quick. I have a free, potentially system agnostic primer that's hopefully coming out for the end of March, start of April. I'm going to have at least 2 streamed games that take place in this setting, both potentially using the Tales of the Valiant system. I also have the Coalition setting guide, which is a hex crawl with NPCs and quest hooks that will be using a 5th edition system. Potentially just Black Flag, but we'll see about the details there. And lastly, we have the Shadow Dark Dungeon Delve adventure, which is going to be based in Unity. As to a timeline for any of that stuff, I've absolutely no idea. And I guess the last thing is to again mention that Vagabond, which is the other system, Vagabond is something that I am actively looking into. Did I actually close the tab with Vagabond? Of course I did, because I suck. But yeah, I will be doing a lot of research on that and seeing what I can translate into that system where appropriate. So, until next time, I don't know if we'll do another in-depth stream next week, but or maybe I'll just be working. I will be, if I'm silent, I'm working. My next major thing is this Tuesday. I have a return to our Call of Cthulhu game where one of our players, because of a failed pushed roll on their Cthulhu Mythos check, that person is now going to be... they basically will be spending an entire month in the Dreamlands. And some of the misadventures that they have had there. That's going to, you know... Seeing what the fallout of that is going to be entertaining. But yeah, I'm done. Stick a fork in me. I'm out. You're lovely people. Be safe. Be well. Thank you for your time. And I will see you all again in the future. Bye-bye, y'all. Bye-bye.